Hey everyone, and welcome to your deep dive. We're diving into leadership today with this super interesting article from an educational leadership course called The Nature of Leadership. It's got me thinking about what makes a great leader, so let's get into it.
Glad to be here. This paper gets right to the heart of it. Exploring those core concepts of leadership should be a good one.
Right, and it starts off strong by asking that big question, what actually is leadership? And it's clear right away it's not just about being the one in charge, right?
Exactly. The article really focuses on that interpersonal side of things, influence, communication, how you inspire and bring people together to work towards a goal. It's about motivating and guiding, not just telling people what to do.
And sometimes it's about taking the blame when things don't go to plan, right? Not always the fun part of the job, but important nonetheless.
100%. Taking responsibility for your team's mistakes, even when it's tough, shows real character. And, this ties into something the article talks about, the difference between leadership and management.
Okay, yeah, that's always a tricky one for me. Help me out here. Are they two sides of the same coin or completely different things?
Here's a way to think about it. Management is like making sure the train runs on time, keeping those processes efficient, systems in place, everything running smoothly. Leadership is more like deciding where the train is going in the first place, setting the vision, figuring out the route, and getting everyone on board with the destination.
Ah, okay, so a manager makes sure the wheels are turning, but the leader provides the direction and the why behind it all.
You got it. And the article even breaks it down further by outlining 9 specific roles of a leader. It's not just one thing. It's a whole bunch of responsibilities rolled into one.
That's so true. I'm seeing how important it is for leaders to be adaptable and wear different hats depending on what's needed.
Absolutely. It's a dynamic practice, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And as we dig deeper into this article, we'll explore how these different aspects of leadership all work together.
So we've talked about how leadership is more than just having a title. It's about influence, vision, all those things.
It really is. And this next part of the article, it's like they're giving us the secret formula for being an amazing leader.
Yeah.
All about the traits they possess.
Right, like a cheat sheet. And it's cool because they go beyond the obvious stuff like communication skills and having a vision. Those are obviously still important. They highlight some other maybe less obvious, but just as important traits.
Totally. Like being an educator for your team and a culture builder, which, given that this article comes from an educational leadership course, kind of makes sense.
It does. Creating a positive learning environment, and not just for students, but for everyone on the team. Fostering that growth and development, no matter what your role is.
Exactly. A great leader helps their team learn and grow. And you know what I find interesting about the culture builder? It really emphasizes that you have to work to build a strong, positive culture. It doesn't just happen magically. Have you ever been part of a team where the culture felt a bit off?
Oh, absolutely. I think we've all been there at some point. And it can really bring down morale and productivity.
For sure.
Ah.
And that's why this whole culture builder thing is so crucial. Recognizing that your values matter. And as a leader, you play a huge role in shaping those values within a team. Creating that environment where everyone feels valued, respected, motivated to do their best work.
It sounds like a lot of responsibility, but also so rewarding when you get it right.
Absolutely.
Oh,
And, this next section really dives into something I think is super relevant, especially these days. Power, influence, and the evolving landscape of leadership. Because let's face it, that old school command and control style of leadership, it just doesn't cut it anymore.
Oh, 100%. It feels so stiff and hierarchical, like it's something out of a textbook. The way we work, the way we collaborate, even just the way we think about leadership has totally changed.
Right. And the article acknowledges that. It brings up this idea of power, which, let's be real, can sometimes have a negative connotation. But it makes the point that power is inherently part of leadership, whether we like it or not. The real question is how that power is used.
So it's not about getting rid of power altogether, but more about using it responsibly and ethically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the good news is, it seems like the whole concept of leadership is shifting. We're seeing a move away from that one person at the top model towards a more collaborative approach. Shared leadership, distributed leadership. Those are the buzzwords you hear now. What are your thoughts on that?
It makes sense to me. It's less about one person having all the answers and more about recognizing the different skills and perspectives everyone brings to the table, empowering others to lead within their own areas of expertise.
Yeah,
Like that.
me too. And speaking of different approaches to leadership, the article goes on to talk about various leadership styles. Charismatic, transactional, transformational. They even talk about something called moral leadership, which I have to say is super intriguing.
Moral leadership, yeah. It feels like something we really need more of these days, but what does that actually look like in action?
It's about leading with your values.
Yeah.
Doing the right thing even when it's tough because it aligns with a deeper purpose. Taking into account how your decisions impact others and not just focusing on the bottom line. Have you ever had a leader who really embodied that kind of moral compass?
Definitely. I've worked with leaders who just had this incredible integrity. They were so committed to doing the right thing, even when it wasn't the easy path. You could really tell it was important to them. And this actually reminds me of another type of leadership the article talks about: instructional leadership. It seems like a really important concept, especially in education.
It is.
Yeah.
It's all about fostering a culture of high-quality instruction, creating an environment where teachers feel supported, where they have the resources to do their best work, and ultimately where everyone is united by that shared goal of student learning. It makes you think about the kind of impact a principal can have on a whole school.
Yeah, like they're leading the learning itself, not just managing everything around it.
Exactly. And, it all comes back to what we've been talking about today, this idea of leadership as a multifaceted, ever-evolving practice.
We've covered a lot of ground. And as we wrap up, what would you say is the biggest takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with?
I'd say the most important thing to remember is that leadership is a journey, not a destination. It's about always learning, growing, adapting your approach to the changing world around you, recognizing your strengths, owning your weaknesses, and just really embracing that chance to make a difference in the lives of others.
Beautifully said. Now, you've been taking notes throughout this deep dive. What's one question that really stood out to you? Something that will keep our listeners thinking even after the episode is over.
When I think back to those 9 roles of a leader we discussed earlier, the question that keeps coming back to me is this: which of those roles do you feel most drawn to? And how can you embody that role, not just in a formal leadership position, but in your everyday life, your work, your community? Because leadership isn't just about titles, it's about action, about influence.
That's a powerful question to end on. It really challenges all of us to think about how we can step up and lead in whatever way feels right for us. It's been fantastic exploring the nature of leadership with you today. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading with purpose.